Hi, my name is Mike Jennings. Today I'm detailing my conversion to KDE. And yes, I said conversion because from the JB Mumble Room, I have been converted to KDE by the High Priestess, RottN. Not just assume that the new KDE is the same as the old KDE. Now, my experience with KDE goes back to Kubuntu, and that was during version 12.04. I ran it for 6 months. And I was not happy with my experience, and I walked away with I'm never running KDE again. Now, I switched to KDE from GNOME on Ubuntu, and that's about the time that Ubuntu went to Unity. Then once I was fed up with KDE, I went to Cinnamon, and then when our office decided to deploy a Linux desktop environment for all of our users, all the users settled on Unity. Because I'm the experienced Linux user, I went to Unity so that I could be an assistance in getting them moving along the way. So I switched back to Unity, the Unity desktop. I've been running that until 1604. At 1604, I had some major issues because my environment is a laptop, and I am running multiple monitors. And I do unplug my laptop and take it with me, and I do let it go to sleep. And so we had wireless issues, video issues. I had some random resets of the desktop environment, and I thought maybe it was because I did an upgrade path, so I did a nuke and pave. That didn't fix the problem, so I upgraded to Mate in 1604, and it solved the wireless network issues. But I still had I still had video issues plaguing me the entire time. I ended up sending my laptop back to System 76. I have a System 76 serval with 64 gigs of RAM and 4 SSDs and the NVIDIA video driver. So I sent it back. They actually replaced the video card. When I got it back, I turned it back on and ran Mate, and I still had the same problems. So it wasn't a video card, it wasn't the hardware, and my decision to switch to Neon, as much as it was the prompting from RottN, it was actually that my environment that I was running was unstable. So just to give a little bit about the environment that I'm running in, I have 3 monitors attached to my laptop. 2 are on display ports, 1 is on an HDMI. They're set up with the laptop in a 1080p, the two 2K monitors horizontal, and then a 2K monitor vertical. And under Neon, it works perfectly. I do have the commercial driver installed. I did put that in because there was some. Initially, I couldn't get the HDMI to come up, but once I put the commercial driver in, it works. I'm not running the PPA from System 76. I wanted to avoid adding anything that may have contributed to some of my pain under Ubuntu and Ubuntu Mate. So once I got my environment in place and I can actually run my 3 monitors, my wireless works, my Bluetooth works, the USB, everything, hard drives are showing up. Okay, the environment is great. When I get it installed, it just works. And I can't say that enough. But one thing I can say is that I ran into these issues where I didn't know how to do things because KDE has a very specific way how they configure their environment, and I wasn't familiar with it. Even though I had to run KDE under 12.04, anything I had learned during that time was lost. And I had tried to forget the experience, moreover. But things have changed under Plasma. This isn't even KDE of old. This is totally different environment. There's some of the same tidbits, but it's totally different. So let's talk about what I did when I first got installed. It comes up with a pretty plain desktop. That environment, comes up with a standard background that they come with, their standard toolbar at the bottom, and really nothing else is really laid out for you. And what I ran into is, I guess it would be nomenclature or the way that KDE presents things. So I went to Mumble, I saw RottN there, and I asked him, how do I configure workspaces? that was my first question, because I use workspaces a lot. And he starts laughing because, I don't know if he was mocking me with his laughter or he's laughing because it's something that's complicated. But one thing that he pointed out is that they're not workspaces in KDE. And now, if you want to know why they're not workspaces, RottN actually has a great answer for it, and it's worth listening to. Because, as the high priestess of KDE, he knows so much history about it that it's unbelievable. So, if you go to system settings within KDE, there are certain features that you wouldn't even know. Like, when it comes up, you're not even sure where to go look for. And this is where having someone like RottN walk you through the whole process was great. Now, underneath system settings and actually, let me go back, and desktop behavior, you're going to see that there's actually this thing called virtual. Now, they have workspaces, but that's not what we're talking about. They use the term virtual desktop. Now, I would never have thought to look under virtual desktop, and I didn't. Honestly, I had seen that, and I'm like, I don't want virtual desktop. I want workspaces, and there's nothing there. So once I was properly proselytized by RottN, I was able to come here and see that they have this beautiful interface for configuring it. Now, I know there's workspaces and other desktop interfaces, and I bet you GNOME and Unity and all these have something similar to this. But this is what I love about the KDE interface. First off, you're able to just quickly type in the data you want, name your desktops, and within the same window on a separate tab, you can go set up the animation you want for that navigation, and you can set up your meta keys or your map keys. So, Control Alt down will go to directly down in your grid of virtual desktops. Now, this is kind of new to me, the easy mapping. So taking the configuration of the environment and then the mapping of that environment to your keyboard, that's a great way. That's a great thing that KDE has implemented here. It really makes it easy I'm working on this and I don't have to go and configure in 10 different places. Yes, it's a GUI, and and the purist would say, are you doing the command line config files? And I tell you, go run BSD then. Now, once I got that done, I start talking to him and running through again, and all of a sudden here comes out and you're gonna have to talk to Ron, but he gave me 3 things that I needed to change. So one of them was gridding. So under shortcuts, global shortcuts, system settings, you type in grid. Now, grid is the ability to pop up your virtual desktops and visually see all the applications that are running on them and where they're at. So it's easy to kind of get to the desktop you want when you have multiple virtual work or virtual desktops. This makes it easy to get to the application or the workspace that you want to be in, or virtual desktop that you want to be in. Sorry about the cross nomenclature here. It's just difficult coming from workspaces to virtual desktops. And like Unity, you can drag between the virtual desktops, the applications, and put them where you want. Very nice. The other thing that he mentioned, and this was kind of, and you got to go set this. And so under toggle present windows, this one here, I mapped this to Meta W because that was his recommendation. And it's a good recommendation because it brings up every application you currently have running. And you just click on that application and you go to that virtual desktop space. What's really nice about that is that I have 30 something windows or 30 applications running, from terminals to web pages to chat rooms and IRCs and a bunch of things that are running within my environment and my daily workflow. And this just makes it extremely easy to go find what I need to find, get my work done, and it just kind of gets out of the way. I can say that mapping, and there's some other stuff I'm playing with. I cannot tell you that I'm ready to start totally mucking with keys because in my experience, if you're not careful, you can actually mess up your work environment by making too many hotkeys, because all of a sudden you're starting to do something from muscle memory and it brings up some weird application. But this was extremely easy. The other thing that he pointed me out pointing me to was messing with some of the other toolbar environments, and that was really easy to kind of get into. Going to the toolbar environment and actually being able to with one click open up the toolbar, add additional widgets, shrink the size of it, change the height. You can do whatever you want with it. There we go. And you can mess with the widths. You can mess with the edges. I was able to bring some of the edges in and out on my screen. I don't like going completely to the edge, because that's one thing I do like to do, is map events in the corners of the screens. So this allowed me to come in and, without having to go to a separate window or config panel or system settings, and actually configure my toolbar that I always use. And you can, if you mess it up, you can delete it and create a new one, and it just comes back up as the standard toolbar. The theming on this is extremely easy. Being able to go and configure your wallpapers at one click. Some of the tweaks that you want for your desktop are all right here in one click. The other thing is that it actually lets you move, which is kind of interesting, is that within my desktop I can set up different backgrounds. So I have a different image on each one of my desktops, which makes it easy for, makes it much more appealing. It just looks better. It's stupid, but it feels and looks better. And and each one of these desktops have your own configuration window. So I can change a desktop on my 2K monitor, and I can use a 2K image, or I can come back to my 1080p monitor and use my 1080p image and change it up and make it look better. And it actually is very pleasing. It's not functionally necessary, but it's very, very pleasing as far as the overall, my overall environment goes. So those are some of the initial changes that I made. One thing I didn't find that I liked and I wanted to add was a side mount bar. Now I've always used plank. Unity, I would put plank in the bottom. With Mate, I had plank on the side. I just like plank, but I had, like I said, I wanted to do with the KDE. I didn't want to inject things from other applications that cause problems, but I figured I'm going to install plank and see how it goes. And I was pleasantly surprised how well it just embeds in the KDE environment and works. One thing that I wasn't really paying attention to at the time, but when I installed plank, immediately the clipboard came up in plank, and it's not something that, it seemed pretty stupid, but I hadn't actually paid attention. It's actually in the bottom toolbar here. But the interesting thing is that in the bottom here, I'm like, oh, here's all these different, things that I've, done, and oh, these are all my clips that, I've been taking and putting in the clipboard stuff I've been putting in my cut and paste stuff. Well, it presents it also in my in plank, so I can come over here and just grab what I was doing. For example, I was trying to install a video card, and so now I can clip that. I can go and cut and paste that command that I had to run to allow exFAT to run in my laptop. So it may seem stupid, but this clipboard is actually really cool. It's not something that came standard with Unity, and it wasn't in Mate. I'm not saying that they don't have clipboards. They do. And I'm not saying that you can't get the same response, but I didn't do anything to configure this. This was just by default working. And those are the kind of things that I like. I like things that just, by default it works. I can be lazy. I can just turn it on and it works. So I can go install KDE, and with, a dozen or so changes, I have my environment exactly the way I want it. So I like that. I think that was extremely beneficial, and it's something that I've completely enjoyed. Also, by default, you're throwing they throw a trash can in there, desktop environment, and then I've just put some other stuff that I constantly use over on the plank toolbar, and it's it's extremely beneficial to me, and it's just something that I was surprised works so well and cleanly with inside of KDE. I didn't have to monkey around with any of the settings. Just 3 clicks and it was up and running exactly the way I want it to, and it just works. Once again, it just works. When I start my computer, it's there. I don't have to go and run Plank. I don't have to go find, oh, why isn't Plank running? Go type Plank in and find out, oh, it took all my settings out. And that was happening with Unity. And not with 1404, but with 1610 Unity. It was removing certain settings from Plank, and it might have just been my desktop environment. But it was a nuke and pave, and I hadn't made any changes. So, yeah, KDE is working great. So let's talk about what some of the other benefits that I have discovered in KDE, and they're going to sound really stupid, and you guys are probably going to laugh, but I have for the last probably 12 years used gedit, and gedit, no matter what I run, if it's not installed, I install gedit. But coming to KDE, I decided I'm going to do this the KDE way. I'm going to get rid of all my norms, and I'm just going to use KDE as it's meant to be used. And I was extremely surprised by KWrite. And let me walk you through this. So I do a lot of SQL query writing, and I spend a lot of time in Bash scripts, and I spend some time in Ruby scripts. And so when I'm using gedit, I go and I set up SQL. But one of the things I found with KWrite is by default, when I opened up my SQL file, it came already pre-configured. It's a SQL. It recognized SQL. Well, that's great. That's just what gedit does. Nothing special there. And this is about what gedit looks like. If I was to compare this to my gedit environment, this is about what gedit looks like. And I can tell you that, I added a scroll. So when I scroll my mouse on my desktop, it flips my monitor. So that's what just happened because I was scrolling off the KWrite. The one thing that gedit doesn't have, obviously, is the preview pane and being able to, kind of walk through here and, get where you need to be within your SQL coding. This is extremely useful. My business partner runs Unity, and he bought a commercial editor for editing Ruby and SQL and a bunch of other stuff that he does. He's our main coder. So his professional toolkit, he came with all this stuff, and I want to call it, I think it was Sublime, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to ask him again. The thing is that KWrite comes with a lot of the same features that he had. Now, I looked down here and I saw the SQL, and I hovered my mouse over one day, and I saw that I can actually go play around databases, and I can go, this is a MySQL. Now some of the feature sets that are in here that I currently get from writing queries within MySQL Workbench, the same structure that MySQL has within their own MySQL Workbench product now shows up within the KWrite. And the difference is I can actually change the background and make it much more comfortable to look at. So it may not seem like much, but that little setting is amazing. Now, I have been researching and looking into KWrite now that all these features are available, and there is the ability to drop in additional modules for KWrite or additional languages for KWrite. And so we're looking into putting a T-SQL in here because we do a lot of T-SQL queries for a commercial billing application that we purchased for our accounting. And so it has an MS SQL backend, and so T-SQL being their language, being able to write to that and have that autocomplete and stuff with inside of your coding, it just makes it, for me, once again, I now don't have to go open up a Windows desktop environment to have autocomplete within my coder for T-SQL. I can use an open source application and it just works. Once again, it just works. So KWrite, huge win. I think if I ever use any other desktop environment other than KDE, I'll probably KWrite is going to be my new default. I also, when I came over, I kind of switched between Terminal and Terminator under Unity for my console environment, and I can say I was kind of hesitant. I was just going to install Terminator because I don't want to mess with my workflow. But I can tell you right now, I'm glad I didn't. So Terminator has the ability to kind of set up a grid where you can have 4 or 5 windows opened up within the same desktop window. And it's great, but it basically requires you to kind of script out what you're going to write, and so you get the same environment every time. And that's what I like about Terminator. And I may still install Terminator for some of the monitoring applications, but I kind of just went through and I installed a bunch of just logged into a bunch of different devices and kind of just running HTOP to kind of show you my example here. I put console in and I saw the split split view here where you can do you can change between left, right, top, bottom, shrink view. All these things are in here. Now you can actually go and change these key mappings as well. Not that I'm going to, because I haven't figured out that that's a good thing yet. But the best thing about this is that now I have the split view, and when you create a split view, you create a new terminal. It creates it on both sides. So I have this fresh terminal created on both sides. Anything I run here, will run on the other side. Now, that may not seem like a big deal if you just want to SSH into one box, but what this does is allows me, because it's split view, to cut and paste between multiple windows. So instead of having to, just cut and click on the top one and go to the other one, I can bring up, 2 different windows and cut and paste between the two and know that I'm working in 2 different environments. And it's all displayed very nicely at the top. Like I said, I'm probably still going to install Terminator because I haven't quite gotten the same performance or workflow out of console as I did of this. But this is a much better terminal application than the terminal application that comes with Unity, at least from my perspective, especially since I have about 100 servers that I SSH to on a weekly basis for management and updates and configurations and just overall perspective. This is a wonderful environment for that. So, once again, I think console is a win. I can't say I'm gonna stay with it, but the split screen has definitely added to my overall workflow. Now, one of the things that has kind of got kind of weird is I use things like MTR, and so KDE brings up a little window when you type in MTR, and I gotta figure out if I like this or not. At this moment, I just like being able to do a MTR report and then export that report. But I can't tell you that this is a bad thing. I mean, it's just I'm used to running it into a terminal, so I haven't quite broken that yet. And it's something that kind of jumped out. There's, like I said, there's differences between the environments and mappings. That this is Ubuntu, but this is KDE. This isn't my experience where Kubuntu is kind of the Ubuntu way of doing KDE. This is the KDE way of doing Ubuntu, in my opinion. And there are some differences and changes that mostly are quite pleasant. So once again, a win. I think console is a great application that comes with KDE, and these being my main workflows, the editors and the console. I can't be happier. I was having some USB problems, and this is probably specific to me, and I know this isn't probably how a lot of people use their environments, but I have 6 hard drives that I cart between my data center in Fargo and my office, and I have a USB stick that I plug those 6 hard drives into, and then I go and browse each one of those drives and pull the specific backup files, making sure that they completed properly, and then I move them to a local NAS because there's still a lot of human intervention in there. We have quite a lot of data from our database servers and stuff that are 100 gig files of database files that I need to properly inspect before I say that's a good backup. So I do that on my desktop environment. And like I said, it's pretty unique in the way that I'm making sure that everything is good. It's my business. I need to know. Well, in Unity, originally, I could probably do that 3 or 4 times, and then I wouldn't be able to, my desktop would not recognize the USBs, and I would go and I would try to clear out some of the USB mappings, and I would reset stuff, but it all came down to once I rebooted Unity, it would work. That problem persisted in Mate. I think it is specifically a Unity issue. Now, I was pleasantly surprised when I started working with Dolphin. I can say I'm not telling you that Dolphin's the end all be all of file managers. I don't know that. But what it is it's a wonderful, it actually is a wonderful file manager. And if I was to move back to another desktop, I would desperately try to bring Dolphin over. It is, it's wonderful. You can add SSH drives easily by just typing in fish in the location that you want to go to, username and password, or username and location you want to go to. Extremely cool with that. So the devices just show up. You have, all the hard drives that I currently have in my system, all my SSDs are showing up, and anything I plug in. So I have my little flash card for my cameras plugged in here. I also have my a USB hard drive that's plugged in here, and they just work. And by clicking on them, you can get to anything you need. This has just been, for me, a change in my workflow. Now, I did add, like, for example, these drives are also mapped. So home is mapped in FSTab to home. It's actually my home directory. And rec video is actually where I record my videos too. And video is just, originally it's for databases or anything that I want to run on an isolated SSD. And this all works really well. I can tell you that I'm extremely pleased with how KDE just worked. I did install a disk manager because I wanted to make some changes with it, and I wasn't totally pleased with that. Not that I needed it, because I could have done everything in the command line, but I wanted to see if I could get a disk manager that did a good representation. But when it came down to it, didn't do all the things I wanted it to do. And I figured that, and KDE didn't by default, if you go, if you go type in disk in KDE, it didn't have it. But KDE Partition Manager I installed, and it was kind of an interesting it's not as useful. This is old KDE. This is the KDE that I remembered. This is not Plasma. This is how I used to experience KDE, and I wasn't, I'm not that happy with this. This is, I know it's just a utility, but it was kind of a waste, and I'll probably end up removing it because it's kind of a wasted program. But overall, my experience with the drive management is great. And I can tell you one thing that's really great. For example, so I'm going to plug that. I just unplugged my USB drive, and I'm going to plug it back in. Now, under Unity, a Mate was different, but under Unity, if I plugged it in, I would get a, what do you want to do? Every time. No matter what I did, I would get a, what do you want to do? In KDE, you get a notification, comes up, shows you that it was installed and plugged in. Away you go, and there is the terabyte drive. 3 clicks, you're up and running. It's absolutely that simple. And I didn't have to go. There was no user input. I could just plug things in, and they're gonna, go grab a cup of coffee and run a script and come back, and everything's done. Usually, that's the beautiful thing about KDE is that I didn't. That drive didn't connect, and I have to go click on something because the GUI is getting in my way. That's not what's happening here, and that's once again huge plus for KDE. So, in conclusion, I'm sold. RottN's proselytizing has converted me to KDE, and I'm probably going to stay here. It's a wonderful environment. There are things that in KDE that I don't use. There's this whole widget thing. I just don't understand widgets. They just, to me, don't make sense. I'm not saying that widgets are a bad thing, but having a big old analog clock on my desk or a bunch of alerts flying in the background of my desktop just seems like a complete and total distraction. I don't need to be distracted. Plus, most of my applications I try to run transparent, especially from a terminal perspective. And as you can see, if I had a big old clock in the background, I guess I would look at it, but it would probably become more distracting than it's actually beneficial. And that's not something I need. So, in conclusion, sticking with KDE. Thank you, RottN.